I think when AI enters the control room, we have to ask different questions. What decision is it influencing? What data is it relying on? What operating condition has it never seen? What happens when it's recommending something incorrectly?
NetSeg or bust, keep your network zero trust. NetSeg.io, where the data needs to go. NetSeg.
Well, it's great to have you here, Maryam. I'm joined here with Maryam Shoraka. Maryam, you're very visible in the cybersecurity community, particularly around the topic of AI. Can you start by maybe telling us a little bit about yourself and where you're focused professionally?
Absolutely, Leon. It's so good to be here, and I can't wait to extend the conversation here about my journey in AI. I started my career back in Iran, but as an immigrant, I couldn't highlight cybersecurity because I always wanted to come to Australia. So secure coding was my shortcut. I started there, even though I was like playing around with radios and cables, always try to fix things. Then as soon as I migrated to Australia, it was like a kid in the lollyland. So I could persuade my desired career officially and to be able to announce it. And working in different organizations and the way that everybody wants to bring efficiency and productivity and getting things done quickly, exposed myself to artificial intelligence. And when I sit down in the boardroom and senior executives, I can see the pattern. I can see where it comes. So that's the way that I feel that we need to start thinking again about how we use AI. So that's the journey, the beginning of the journey of joining ethical and responsible group to use AI and ensure that we ask difficult questions whenever it's needed. So that's the short and sweet journey. But it started from Iran and now in Australia. Hopefully soon can extend my capability more globally and internationally to ensure that the message sits with different communities and well.
Well, we're very fortunate to have someone of your caliber of talent here in Australia helping serve the Australian cybersecurity industry.
Fantastic, thank you.
So turning to the AI topic, when it comes to industrial cybersecurity, what changes when AI moves from a corporate environment into an operating technology environment?
Well, Leon, the first thing that changes, I should say, is the consequence. In corporate environment, incorrect decision of AI may affect data, productivity, privacy. Not that they do not matter, they matters. But when it comes to operational technology, it quickly can go out of digital world and it can put people at risk. But I think that I do not see AI in OT as simply another digital transformation initiatives or cybersecurity capability. I think when AI enters the control room, we have to ask different questions. What decision is it influencing? What data is it relying on? What operating condition has it never seen? What happens when it's recommending something incorrectly? And can we have the authority, like a human judgment there, to be able to override the decision or change the decision, and how the businesses support that? I believe that for using AI in OT, it's more about the context, and each OT environment has different context and business requirement. So I think we cannot close our eyes and blindly, because everybody is moving toward AI, introduce AI to OT environments, especially with when environments gets more complicated, like rail industries or water consumption. So it's a matter of different operational technology that come together that AI needs to be very, very intelligent to be able to understand the context and understand the decision, and then can quickly action. I think that's the most important part that we need to first understand, and then change the questions that we ask about how AI is going to help us here.
Yeah, so some great observations there. I think people are still sort of learning what capabilities are there, but the rate of change is just tremendous.
Yeah.
And one of the other interesting things is, like, where does the accountability start to sit? And in OT cybersecurity generally, accountability is a very interesting topic because those lines can get blurred very easily between the corporate head office and the control room. So where do you think accountability should sit when an AI supported decision contributes to some kind of operational or safety disruption?
Well, let me just put this way, that recently at CISO Melbourne, I should say, probably last week, it seems as ages, I actually talked about authority and accountability in OT environment, from the time that we get an alert till the time that we action. Because in OT is not like, okay, patch now. We cannot do that. We cannot deploy that. And the more depth that we go in, the more complicated it becomes in a layer of accountability and authority. So I would use an example of octopus. Octopus has 8 arms, and each one of those arms act individually. Like, it doesn't send all the signals to the brain to make a decision. So it gets it, like if it touches something, it analyzes it. And if the pattern is known, then it acts on it. It doesn't send that signal to the brain. For AI, I would say in OT, we should use it in this way. So split it across the environment whenever is possible to just observe and learn. And then that brain should still be human judgment to go and make the decision, final judgment. And at the end, I would say accountability must remain with the organization that chooses to deploy, configure, or rely on this technology. It's same as other technology that we bring on board. Every organization use different tools. They have service owners, they have business owners, risk owners. Same needs to apply. We cannot heavily say, simply answer that because AI made a decision, that's it. We cannot do that in AI because AI is still, as everybody is familiar. So as soon as you type something in ChatGPT, you can see the prompt at the bottom that AI can make a mistake. Always validate.
Yep.
That's the message that I would like to emphasize, that accountability needs to be within the organization, within the risk owner. And we cannot just go and say that because we want to bring this technology or using AI, we are going to do it and find it on the way. This communication, this decision needs to happen before even thinking to introduce AI to operational technology. Because as I said, consequence is going to be massive. It impacts emergency services, it impacts people. And in OT, as you know, the risk is people, that it's a life and death. We cannot just say that, well, because AI did it, it's just there. And also, I want to point something that I know that in Australia in December, Privacy Act is going to be more mature. But it's very interesting there because the message is about children data. However, when you dig in further, you can see that it's not only children data, it's the sensitive data, PII data that used in the computed system. It's a very wise way to use it, because then we have automation, we have AI, we have different ways of using data in our computing ways. And I think it's better for senior executives to think about these elements that comes from different changes, that at the end, each policy and each obligation or compliance put the human as accountable and put the business owner as accountable. So we need to provide evidence of decision making by AI, and at the end, who authorized that? And we cannot just say that, oh, the person is there to approve it. Basically, that's not right. It shouldn't be right. We do not need human being to just press the button approve. That's not judgment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great point you make about someone being accountable, even if it is heavily AI influenced. Someone still has to own the ultimate accountability. Otherwise, it's going to be very easy to point that finger. Well, that was AI, and I don't think a lot of people are going to accept that kind of excuse when something bad happens.
Yeah.
There really needs to be a level of human accountability, and you're now managing, as well as a human team, some AI systems potentially, and you're ultimately responsible for what happens. And if something bad happens, well, you're going to be accountable for that. So you need to consider that in how you adopt those systems.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that octopus analogy is great as well, because not just in AI but in OT in general, it's often a bit of a fact-finding mission when cyber teams are first starting that industrial cybersecurity program, because they don't know what's out there, they don't know who to talk to, start to build those relationships and find out what's happening. And if people don't trust you, then it's going to be very hard to get those get an understanding of what you're actually on the hook to secure. Coming back to that accountability.
Exactly, Leon. And from the time that the alert comes to the time that we action, it's a big gap in OT, because majority of the time SOC team sits out of OT environment. And when it comes to the organization with having offices and branches around the world, it's even more challenging, because the SOC team needs to send an alert back to the engineers in the field, ask for validation. So it adds time to for the threat actor to continue with whatever they've been doing in the environment, because the authority sits out of SOC team because of the consequences. So I feel that there is a gap there, which is not related to this topic that we are talking today, but there is a gap there that companies and organizations need to start thinking about. Cyber incident management or incident plan needs to clearly define the authority and who can action things. And we cannot just generalize things. We need to go scenario based. And if there are familiar scenarios, we can do the automation to do the action immediately, because it's been assessed as a risk, everything. We know the consequences. And if it's low risk, let's action immediately, not wait for all the validation that needs to come in. And we give the threat actor more time to do whatever they want to do.
Yeah, you've actually reminded me of a OT. It was an OT specific cybersecurity tabletop I ran a couple of weeks ago with one of my clients, and it came out fairly well. But it's just really interesting when you start stress testing what tools and processes are in place and who's going to do what, when you've got everyone in a room, cyber and operations, starting to talk about, well, what are we going to do when something like this happens, for example. So really interesting. And the IT/OT SOC discussion is one I often debate people about converging those or having them separate third party involving some of the OT operations. I guess turning to that third party discussion, OTI environments often have third parties, not just cybersecurity like operations, but third parties with specialized skills who are supporting and maintaining these systems.
Yep.
How do those suppliers and third parties change the AI risk inside industrial environments, do you think?
Well, I think they make it more complex, less visible, and harder to govern, because we do not know, even if the one organization goes completely against the AI, that no, we are not going to implement AI on our OT environment. How many of these organizations have inventory of their suppliers who use AI in day-to-day work? So if you have that first layer, then it goes down again, another layer, that how many of your contractors actually using AI, the subcontractor, and it goes down the chain. So it makes it more difficult for one organization to govern it, to create significant, like this creates a significant gap in my perspective. And in this area, I think we need to ask who developed the model, who trained it, what data was used, and whether the data reflects the organization's actual operating environment or not. I feel that, again, it's because everybody wants to catch with the speed of AI and using AI to, again, bring efficiency and get more things done within a shortened period of time. I would say that sit back, please, a little bit. Understand the impact of AI in your environment. And if you haven't started asking questions whether your vendor or service provider or contractor using any ways of artificial intelligence or model learning, machine learning, start recording them. Because then when an incident occurs, you can track, you have more visibility to know that where you can engage the vendor or the contractor or subcontractor of that vendor to get the information that you need. And I think we need to also understand when operational data is being processed and stored. This is always a gap. And is it staying on site? Is it on the cloud? And is it going to be used to improve a vendor's broader model? Or can the supplier change the model or its decision logic without informing the client? So these are the questions that I think in the questionnaire, especially because this is a typical exercise that a company send a questionnaire to third party and they ask, it's not there. These questions are not there. So we do not have visibility. And it, as I said, it makes it very, very difficult to understand who owns the risk and how we can collaborate to govern the situation.
Yeah, great point. And I think we're going to see more and more of these AI systems just going rogue and behaving in unexpected ways. Like I think it was just earlier this week, one of OpenAI's systems, the model broke out of its own sandbox and then went and attacked another system. And, I made a video this morning about, that's probably a new malware delivery method where if an attacker can get an AI payload into an OT environment, they don't need persistent access because that AI will break its way out and give them command and control, if and when someone opens up a channel for them to do that or a new zero-day emerges that they can exploit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, really whole new attack vector for us to consider as cybersecurity leaders. So I guess when it comes to that, we don't want to trust AI to make all the decisions. And I think you made a really good point. Humans should still be in that decision loop, at least now. Maybe in 20 years, it'll be a different story. But what does meaningful human judgment look like, do you think, Maryam, in an AI-enabled control room?
Well, I believe that similar to when we want to hire a person or like fill up a position in any company, we look for competency, right? We look for people who can make a decision, who can understand the context. And I think this is the same thing. To me, meaningful human judgment requires competence, authority, context, and ability to act, especially when it comes to time of stress and pressure. When the person receiving an AI recommendation, that person needs to understand enough about the process and the technology to recognize when something is not right and or something doesn't make sense. They must have the authority as well to challenge and pause or reject that recommendation. Definitely with evidence base, like to have the evidence of why we rejecting this recommendation. Also, that human judgment need to access to the wider operational context. AI may be analyzing network traffic, sensor data, or historical pattern, but it may not be able to understand that the plant is in maintenance mode or that a safety system is being tested or a supplier is conducting an approved work on the environment.
Mhm.
This is the knowledge that human being have. OT decision rarely belongs, in my perspective, to one discipline. It's more than that. And a cybersecurity analyst may come to us and say, well, this is suspicious communication. An engineer may understand the process of dependency. Again, an operator may know the current plant condition. So all come together. And then it makes a authority or giving that context that we need on top of AI recommendation to be able to say, yep, go ahead, or no, we cannot proceed with that, or this is going to have operational impact. AI can see, it's like a horse, when they block a side to concentrate on one side. AI is in that. Either you want to extend it, which you extend the threat exposure as well, or you want to narrow it down to just focus on what it matters, but what matters doesn't provide full context. And I think that's very, very important in operational technology. It should come, I would say that when AI come to OT, it should be operational intelligence.
Yeah, that's a great way of thinking about it. And, the point you made around incident response, I agree. Any incident response playbook where there's operational impacts, the plant personnel, they're going to be playing a role in that incident response, and they should be involved in co-creating those playbooks, because there's probably going to be some kind of make safe process as part of your containment and eradication if you're going to, properly execute that. You can't just hit an e-stop from the SOC when you might actually make the problem worse as a result. You need that operational context. So great point about where AI comes in. So I guess coming towards the end of this discussion, Maryam, this has been super illuminating for me. So, you've been in the industry more than 20 years across IT and OT cybersecurity. What do you believe the industry still fundamentally gets wrong?
I believe we still confuse the presence of controls with the presence of control. To explain it further, I feel that an organization can have framework, dashboards, policies, risk registers, compliance reports, AI principles, and expensive technology, right? None of these things automatically mean it understands its real exposure or can make the right decision under pressure. Many of us have learned this lesson that our incident response plan on the paper looks perfect, but every time that we deal with real incident, we feel the gap, we see the gaps. That's why we keep adding lesson learned to each PIR, post-incident review, because that's the thing that we design environments for the ideal environment. We design policies for ideal environment, not the messy operational technology that has legacy or 30 years old equipments. And those dashboards give us false confidence that we are good because they are all green, either due to lack of visibility of that what we have, or just to make everybody happy. Because to me, we have become very good at proving that activities have occurred, but we can show that an assessment was completed, a policy was approved, a vulnerability was logged, we registered the risk. But the harder question is whether any of that changes what happens during a real incident. Do people know who has the authority? Not only cyber team, I mean bigger teams in an organizations. Do we understand the physical consequence? And can we isolate a system safely? Have we tested our backup system or recovery process? Many organizations come and say, yep, we have backup. But when was the last time that you test your backup and you try to recover from your backup and everything worked fine? I think these are the areas that we keep telling ourselves wrong, like we not lying, but we keep ignoring the actual point here. Because if we do not know whether the supplier has access or not, how can we make a decision quickly? We need to go back to validate it. We need to go to the brain to make that information and validate if you use that octopus. And in my perspective, and there is another question that can the organization continue operating when technology, data, or communication are unavailable? See what happens in Middle East. And many organizations have data centers in that region, have head offices there, headquarters there. The network, the internet went down, the operating system went down, and suddenly everything shut down. Have we thought about this in our business continuity plan? Have we tested our resilience plan? These are the area that I think we just keep telling ourselves that yes, we have this, we have business continuity plan, we have recovery plan, but have we tested them? Have we pressure test, as you mentioned, have we pressure test them to see whether they are really going to work? And to me, we ask whether an AI model is accurate, but not always tested during the real scenario, that what may happen if it manipulates the data, what may happen when the data by itself is not clean enough. We give the wrong data and we get the wrong recommendation. So to me, I should say cybersecurity is not ultimately about protecting just devices or network or data for their sake. I would say that we need to understand that cybersecurity, at the end of the day, no matter whether it's IT or OT, has an impact on people and has an impact on real life. And when we understand this, I think then we can say it's about protecting what those systems enable: people, operations, community, essential services, and trust. And then I would like to wrap it up like this, Leon, that my message is that innovation must not go faster than accountability. So we try to innovate things without thinking who is accountable for that. And to me, that's really scary.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing to bring it back to whenever you're making a decision about adopting AI or even any other kind of technology, is who's ultimately accountable for what this technology is going to do. Because when you put a single, not a team, not a, ethereal group of people, but when one person is accountable for ultimately the adoption of a technology, what that technology does, and all of a sudden you've aligned the incentives where that person has a particular interest in making sure it's used properly, and you don't get those unintended consequences that might lead to a situation. And as you said earlier, we can have all our best plans and processes, but I love the quote, no plan survives contact with the enemy. And as soon as you get an incident, that's when you're really putting it to the test and really validating, is this real or is this just another document that's sitting in our SharePoint?
Exactly. Couldn't agree more with you, Leon.
Fantastic, Maryam. So really great to have you on the podcast, Maryam. Are there any closing thoughts you'd like the listeners to take away from this discussion?
Well, I'm just would love to hear the feedback from your audience, as well as encouraging everybody to think about consequences of our decision today that has on generations that they do not have voice now. They are not here now. So we need to be very responsible about what we are doing for the next generations.
Great words to take into account, Maryam. Words to live by. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you.